My name is Abigail, and I am 26 years old. The day my husband left, I remember standing at the airport trying to smile, like a supportive wife, while my chest felt like it was collapsing inward. He held my hands, kissed my forehead, and promised me it would only be 6 years. Just a temporary assignment. A career opportunity we couldn't afford to lose. My husband was sent on a 6-year assignment to Africa, and for 6 years I waited alone? Those words would later replay in my mind like a cruel echo. But back then they felt like a badge of honor. Something noble, something romantic even. I believed in love and loyalty and sacrifice. I believed in him. The first year was painful but manageable. We spoke constantly, video calls, messages, long emotional conversations about our future. I adjusted my entire life around his absence. I turned down invitations, skipped holidays, endured lonely nights in the apartment that still smelled like his cologne. Friends told me I was strong, devoted, inspiring. I clung to those compliments because they made the emptiness feel meaningful. By the second year, the calls became less frequent. But he always had reasons. Poor network, exhausting workload, time differences. I defended him fiercely to anyone who questioned it. By the third year, the silence grew heavier, yet my faith grew stubborn. I told myself that real love survives distance, that doubt is the enemy of marriage. I stayed faithful with an almost religious intensity, as if my loyalty alone could protect what we had. Every anniversary, every birthday, every quiet Sunday morning, I whispered the same promise to myself. Just hold on, Abigail, just a few more years. People drifted away. Life moved forward for everyone except me. I lived inside a waiting room made of memories and hope. Sometimes fear crept in during the night. Dark and suffocating, but I crushed it quickly, ashamed of my own imagination. He would never betray me. He was my husband. He was my future. Then came the 5th year, the year everything shattered, though I didn't know it yet. It happened on an ordinary weekday, the kind of day that never announces catastrophe. I was at work, tired, distracted, carrying my coffee into the elevator with a colleague I barely knew. We exchanged polite smiles, the usual small talk. Then she looked at me with mild curiosity and asked about my personal life. I casually mentioned my husband working abroad, still in Africa, still on that 6-year assignment. Her expression changed instantly, confusion replacing friendliness. She hesitated, then laughed awkwardly as if correcting a simple misunderstanding. Africa? She repeated. I nodded. That was when she said the sentence that tore through my reality with surgical precision. But, your husband came back 5 years ago? I felt the world tilt. For a second, I genuinely thought I had misheard her. The elevator seemed too bright, too silent, the air too thin. I asked her to repeat it, my voice trembling in a way that instantly frightened me. She looked uncomfortable now, almost guilty. She explained that she had met him years earlier at a corporate event. Here, in this city, not overseas, not recently returned but long settled. My ears rang so loudly that her words became fragmented, unreal. I remember staring at the closing elevator doors, watching my reflection distort in the metal surface, feeling like I was dissolving into someone I didn't recognize. My mind scrambled desperately for explanations, mistaken identity, coincidence, some bizarre error. Yet deep inside, something colder and darker was already awakening. Something that understood before I did. 5 years. 5 entire years. While I had been waiting, defending, believing, he had been here. Breathing the same air, walking the same streets, living a life from which I had been completely erased. The elevator ride lasted less than a minute, but it felt like an eternity of slow, unbearable revelation. When the doors opened, my legs barely carried me out. My heart pounded, not with heartbreak, but with a terrifying clarity. The story I had been living was not a tragedy of distance, but a masterpiece of deception, and I was only just beginning to see how deep the lie truly went. I did not confront him immediately. Shock has a strange way of freezing you, of wrapping your thoughts in fog. While your instincts scream that something is terribly wrong, I walked through the rest of that day like a ghost, smiling at coworkers, answering emails, pretending that my entire reality had not just been ripped apart inside an elevator. But your husband came back 5 years ago? The sentence kept looping in my head, each repetition sharper than the last. That night, alone in the apartment I had preserved like a shrine to our marriage, I finally allowed myself to think. Not as a loving wife, not as a hopeful dreamer, but as someone who might have been betrayed on a scale too large to comprehend. I began with the smallest, most innocent step. I searched his name online. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely type. At first, nothing unusual appeared, old profiles, outdated photos, fragments of a life I thought I knew. Then I found newer images. Recent images. Images taken here in my own city. My breath stopped. There he was, unmistakable. Smiling at events. Standing with people I had never seen. Wearing clothes I had never watched. Him by dates, locations, years, proof that did not care about my feelings or my loyalty. Proof that quietly, mercilessly confirmed the impossible truth. My husband had not been in Africa for 6 years. He had been here, living, existing, hiding. The pain that followed was not a sudden explosion, but a slow, crushing weight. Every memory mutated into something grotesque. Every lonely night became evidence. Every excuse he had ever given me now sounded like mockery. I remembered defending him, arguing with friends, sacrificing opportunities, shaping my entire existence, around a man who had already returned and simply chosen not to tell me. Chosen not to come home. Chosen somehow to keep me suspended in a lie. Sleep never came. By morning, disbelief had hardened into determination. I needed to hear it from him. I needed to look into his eyes and watch him. Explain how a person could do this to someone who loved them completely. I called him with a calmness that frightened even me. When his face appeared on the screen, familiar yet suddenly foreign, I felt an icy clarity settle over my emotions. No tears, no trembling. Only a quiet, terrifying focus. I asked a simple question. Where are you? He answered smoothly, automatically, the same well-practiced tone I had trusted for years. Africa, work, distance, lies delivered with effortless precision. That was when something inside me finally broke, not into chaos, but into certainty. I told him what I had learned. I told him about the elevator, the colleague, the photos. I watched his expression change in real time. Confidence draining, color fading, silence stretching between us like an abyss. There was no dramatic denial, no convincing defense. Only stammering, fragmented excuses, words collapsing under the weight of reality. The truth, when it emerged, was uglier than anything my imagination had dared to construct. He had returned early. He had built another life. He had convinced himself that maintaining the illusion was easier than facing consequences, easier than admitting betrayal, easier than acknowledging that I existed. 5 years of deliberate deception, sustained not by necessity, but by choice. I expected rage. I expected hysterical grief. Instead, I felt something far more devastating. Emptiness. A hollow realization that the man I had waited for, suffered for, remained faithful for, was not the person I thought I married. The marriage I had protected with such devotion had effectively ended years earlier, without my knowledge, without my consent, without even a final conversation. When the call ended, I sat in absolute silence, surrounded by the artifacts of a life that suddenly felt fictional, photos, messages, promises. All of it now resembling props in an elaborate performance I never knew I was part of. But in that silence, another feeling slowly surfaced. Fragile, yet powerful. Freedom. For 6 years with husband in Africa, I stayed faithful, until I learned he came back 5 years ago. The sentence no longer sounded like humiliation. It sounded like awakening. I had lost years, yes. I had endured loneliness built on lies, yes. But I had also uncovered a truth that would have otherwise imprisoned me indefinitely. The future I feared no longer existed. The illusion was gone. And in its place stood something uncertain yet honest. Something terrifying yet real. A life no longer defined by waiting. If my story moved you, if it made you feel the shock, the pain, and the strength it takes to rebuild after betrayal, then take a moment to subscribe to the channel. There are many more stories that will stay with you, challenge you, and remind you that even the most devastating truths can become the beginning of something stronger.